funding some dangerous people. They are indoctrinating young minds throughout the West with their resentment-ridden ideology. They have made it their life's mission to undermine Western civilization itself, which they regard as corrupt, oppressive, and patriarchal. If you're a taxpayer, or paying for your kid's liberal arts degree, you're underwriting this gang of nihilists. You're supporting ideologues who claim that all truth is subjective, that all sex differences are socially constructed, and that Western imperialism is the sole source of all third world problems. They are the postmodernists, pushing progressive activism at a college near you. They produce the mobs that violently shut down campus speakers, the language police who ensure...
I remember 2020 when the George Floyd thing just exploded. I mean, it was crazy because by then I was living in New York, and the entire city was just basically on flames. I mean, exaggerating, of course, but it was very dangerous just going outside. By that time, I was doing sales. I was doing door knocking, selling solar panels. And that first time that we got out to see the stores, everything was broken. I mean, things were ripped apart. Some of the guys, even that work with me, they just participate in the events, right? It was a bad time.
Enshrined into law use of fabricated gender pronouns, and the deans whose livelihoods depend on madly rooting out discrimination where little or none exists. Their thinking took hold in Western universities in the 60s and 70s when the true believer...
I would say that what is that saying? Good intentions open the doors to hell. With good intention, you open the doors to hell. That's how I see this. Everything looks good in the outside. Everything good looks like good intentions. When they are in reality, there's always something undermined, like an inner under message that in the end looks like they want power.
Members of the radical left became the professors of today.
Yeah.
And now we rack up education-related debt, not so that our children learn to think critically, write clearly, or speak properly, but so they can model their mentors' destructive agenda. To understand and oppose the postmodernists, the ideas by which they orient themselves must be clearly identified. First is their new unholy trinity of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Another religion, basically.
Not by opinion, but by race, ethnicity, or sexual identity. Equity is no longer the laudable goal of equality of opportunity, but the insistence on equality of outcome. And inclusion is the use of identity-based quotas to attain this misconceived state of equity. All the classic rights of the West are to be considered secondary to these new values. Take, for example, freedom of speech, the very pillar of democracy. The postmodernists refuse to believe that people of goodwill can exchange ideas and reach consensus. Their world is instead a Hobbesian nightmare of identity groups warring for power. They don't see ideas that run contrary to their ideology as simply incorrect. They see them as integral to the oppressive system they wish to supplant, and consider it a moral obligation to stifle and constrain their expression. Second is rejection of the free market, of the very idea that free voluntary trading benefits everyone. They won't acknowledge that capitalism has lifted.
So they're against free market. That means they want to eliminate anything regarding free market. I guess it's just they might substitute it with something else, I guess.
Up hundreds of millions of people, so they can, for the first time in history, afford food, shelter, clothing, transportation, even entertainment and travel. Those classified as poor in the U.S. and increasingly everywhere else are able to meet their basic needs. Meanwhile, in once prosperous Venezuela, until recently the poster child of the campus radicals, the middle class lines up for toilet paper.
Damn.
Third and finally are the politics of identity. Postmodernists don't believe in individuals. You're an exemplar of your race, sex, or sexual preference. You're also either a victim or an oppressor.
Yeah.
No wrong can be done by anyone in the former group, and no good by the latter. Such ideas of victimization do nothing but justify the use of power and engender intergroup conflict.
Are we becoming a nation of intellectuals? I hadn't thought of that. It's a chilling thought. We're becoming a
Showing thought.
From elementary school right on through to the graduate school in a certain vision of the world. And only the ones who, for one reason or another, either experience or insight or whatever, leads them to say, wait a minute. Only those are the ones that we have to tell.
This is an excerpt taken from the book Intellectuals and Society by Dr. Thomas Sowell. He saw this a long time ago. Back in the 18th century, William Godwin articulated this argument when he said, "The next generation will not have so many prejudices to subdue. Children, according to Godwin, are a sort of raw material put into our hands. Their minds are like a sheet of white paper. At the same time, they are oppressed by their parents and must go through, according to him, 20 years of bondage before they receive the scanty portion of liberty, which the government of my country happens to concede to its adult subjects."
Okay.
William Godwin's notion that the young are a sort of raw material put into our hands remains after.
Got a little bit lost there. I think I have an idea where he's going with. I got a little bit lost there. Let's see if later they can connect it with.
Indoctrination in schools and colleges.
Tonight here. We buy it.
In the early 20th century, Woodrow Wilson wrote of his years as an academic administrator when he felt, "I should like to make the young gentlemen of the rising generation as unlike their fathers as possible." This indoctrination can start as early as elementary school, where students
So indoctrination.
are to write about controversial issues, sometimes
So the earlier you can get them, the better.
More fundamentally, the indoctrination process habituates them to taking sides on weighty and complex issues after hearing just one side of those issues. Moreover, they are habituated to venting
Get them early, the better.
instead of analyzing conflicting evidence and dissecting conflicting arguments. In short, they are led to prepackaged conclusions, instead of being equipped with the intellectual tools to reach their own conclusions, including conclusions different from those of their teachers. In many colleges and universities, whole academic departments are devoted to particular prepackaged conclusions, whether on race, the environment, or other subjects, under such names as black, women's, or environmental studies. Few, if any, of these studies include conflicting visions and conflicting evidence, as educational rather than ideological criteria might require. One of the remarkable self-indulgences of contemporary educators in the public schools has been the introduction into classrooms of programs which systematically undermine moral principles that have come down over the centuries and which children have been taught by their parents. These programs have usually been developed by intellectuals outside the field of education, extensively marketed by both commercial firms and non-profit organizations, and are often eagerly embraced by educators who have been taught in schools of education that their role is to be that of agents of social change, not simply transmitters of a heritage of knowledge.
Okay, so basically it's not about, what I'm getting from this is not about transferring the knowledge, it's more for transferring the mission of maybe whatever the mission is, get it done no matter what. If you're into the indoctrination so much, whether it happens early, if this doesn't happen early, you try to drag it out all the way to college. And you college, you already have your identity, but then your identity is molded because you're being an adult, but you're surrounded by other adults. They have these kind of thoughts. They hang out with those intellectuals, and all of a sudden, you have to think like us, because if you don't think like us, we're not going to give you the 100% kind of thing. And I can see how that can be damaging.
These programs have a remarkable
Yep.
variety of names and ostensible
Yeah, see.
goals, one of the earliest names being values clarification, though other names have proliferated after parents and others discovered what values clarification really meant in practice and raised objections. The phrase values clarification is very misleading. When parents tell their children not to steal or lie or engage in violence, there is no ambiguity as to what they mean. Ambiguity is introduced by programs.
That's a good point. I'm a father, black and white, good and bad. When you get to the intellectual world, it's more relativism, right? So things are gray, things are not. It's black or white. It's not only that data doesn't mean this. It can mean many things. If the sky blue, well, it cannot be blue. Well, it all depends how blue you, what it is blue for you. Blue can be many things. So you start having these relative, objective terms, and you don't get to something concrete. So all of a sudden you go to the world. The world really, really don't have empathy for you, and you start having a lot of problems with you against the world, because college was supposed to train you to get to the world, but the world in college is completely different, right? Just in college you were just this little experiment, and the world is moving like this. You're still just evolving this experiment, and then all of a sudden you want to enter into the world, and the world is saying, we don't need this. We just want to reject you. We don't care about you. We don't care about your philosophy, thoughts about hundreds of things that have no meaning, right? That this is when you go with parents, right or wrong, don't steal, and then all of a sudden you come to college. Well, stealing could be exceptional if you do these things, if the situation is this, very ambiguous.
Which confront students with carefully crafted moral dilemmas, such as a situation where a ship is sinking and there are more people than the lifeboats can hold, so that decisions have to be made as to who is to be left to drown, perhaps beaten off when they try to climb out of the water onto a lifeboat that is already so full that it will capsize if another person climbs in. Because received principles do not always apply, the implication is that each individual should develop his or her own situational ethics to replace traditional morality, not only where traditional moral principles fail, but in the vast range of more ordinary situations where there are no such dilemmas as those in contrived examples. If such exercises seem remote from the purposes of a public school education, they are not remote from the philosophy introduced into education by John Dewey a century ago, and promoted by schools of education to the present day. Nor were they remote from the thinking by Woodrow Wilson. Like so much in the vision of the anointed, this view of education exalts those who believe in it, and so it is not simply a set of testable hypotheses about social events. Also, like other aspects of that vision, there is no price to be paid by its promoters for being wrong. However, large price ends up being paid by individual students or by society at large.
Yeah, like that's what I said.
Whose clarification has been just one of a wide range of high-sounding names for classroom programs to reshape the attitudes and consciousness of the younger generation.
Like the same thing what I said. It's just these kind of skills that are developed for that has no space in the real world, right? Because the real world will tell you what we really need in the moment. You're stuck in this bubble, and all of a sudden there's all these ideas coming in. These ideas are the only thing is going, I guess, is just inflate your ego. That's what I think.
Other names have included effective education, decision-making, quest, sex education, and many other imaginative titles. Such titles are often simply flags of convenience, under which schools set sail on an exciting voyage in an uncharted sea of social experimentation in the reshaping of young people's beliefs and attitudes. The ever-changing names for these programs reflect the need for concealment or misdirection, since few parents want to be told that schools are out to undo what the parents have taught their children, or to mold those children to be what third parties want them to be. To help spread Thomas Sowell's message around the world, please consider subscribing.
Amazing, very good. That was very good. Something I noticed about Thomas Sowell and now Jordan Peterson, I don't know about him. I haven't even reacted to these videos. He has so many. It's just hard to go with. But it's just the core value. I think is just really personal responsibility. I think. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comment below. But it seems like their ideas are good, but when the time of practice or implementing is, I think, it's lacking. I might be wrong. You guys know. Let me know. All right.